It's been a while, so I thought it might be a good idea for us to come back to the Dark Orb and kickstart your weekend. I'm really sorry, it's been a really long time. I'd love to say that I've got some good excuses for that, but really I don't. So, what can I say? World has been a challenge, and we have some new technology going on that was a pain to set up and all that stuff. But anyway, enough of that crap. What do we need to know? Well, there's a couple of great campaigns on right now, one that's doing hugely successfully, the other could maybe do with a little bit more love, but I'd really like to see them do well. So let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. If you're interested in those specific products, if you backed them, let me know. And if you enjoy the show, please like and subscribe and all of that goodness. So without further ado, with devious dungeons, foreboding forests, and the coolest cats, my name's Phil, and welcome to the Dark Orb. It's good to be back. I hope you're all well. It has been too long. Let me know, what are the campaigns that are running right now that you're excited by? There have been so many, it was really difficult to make any sorts of decisions about this specific show. But I thought it would be fun to talk about a couple of things that have been on my radar for a while. My copy of Old Gods of Appalachia from Monty Cook Games has just arrived, and I'm about 200 pages through it, and it is beautiful. So let's have a look at Monty Cook's current campaign. Jay, it's wonderful to see you. I hope you're well. I agree. Wilderfeast looks really interesting. I remember when they first started doing the PR for it, the advertising, and I was really concerned that it might be another 5e game, but it's not. So I'm definitely going to be checking that out, and if we have time, maybe we can look at that one next week and see what's going on with that one, as I haven't really had an opportunity to dig into that yet. But the other thing that I want to talk about today is, well, it's actually an old French role-playing game. The French role-playing game called Ecryme, or Ecryme. I should really have checked the videos to see how they've decided to pronounce it. But I'm going to call it Ecryme, and hopefully that's good enough. And maybe we should start there. It was a very, very popular role-playing game in France quite a while ago. Like, really quite a while ago, by role-playing terms. I mean, considering it's quite a modern feeling game, it's been around for some time. And what's different is that basically, well, we haven't really had a lot of steampunk stuff in a while, have we? And I guess you've got things like Eberron for 5th edition. There are a few things here and there. Blades in the Dark is a good example as well. But nothing has quite hit the spot for me. We also had, yeah, there have been a couple. Carbon Grey is another good example. There's more diesel punk, but you can certainly see elements of steam in there as well. Ecryme, however, Ecryme, please let me know in the comments, is something that is a little bit more traditional, more sort of almost Yule Vernian in its concept. And let's have a look and see what I mean. Well, I'm not going to play the video, but it is worth looking at. And generally the idea is that, if we scroll down, it's the English adaptation of this celebrated French role-playing game with the same name, as I said. Steampunk, post-apocalyptic, with politics and social struggles and supernatural intrigues as well. Now, what's interesting for me is that it's running on a 2d6 system, which immediately made me think of things like Powered by the Apocalypse. But it does have stats, and it's got 4 key statistics. I'm just scrolling through to remind myself what they are. Here we go. So you have traits, skills, ideal, and spleen. And the traits are narrative, the skills are also fairly narrative, and then you have your ideals and your spleen, which are, they feel kind of like wild cards in either direction, like a wild card and a joker almost. And when you need to roll a number of d6, 3d6, and you keep a couple, the highest or the lowest, depending whether you're measuring against your ideal or your spleen, and that impacts the game. But what's interesting about how the game seems to work, and I need to spend more time looking at things like the quick start, which I do have, but as I said, time's been a bit weird lately. And it's really hot in the UK. If you haven't seen, we've got a heat wave going on right now, so I'm amazed that I can even talk. But they don't have hit points. So what happens is if you fail a roll, depending on your margin of success or failure, it really has a narrative impact. So there are consequences, but it's not necessarily a hit pointy type thing. It's more to do with, it gives the GM an idea of how much they can take the story against you, if that makes sense. That's my interpretation. But let's have a look. So I'm going to do a bit of reading right at you. I'm really sorry, but hopefully it won't be too boring for you. So first of all, I mean, look at this artwork. Isn't it beautiful? I can see that you guys are commenting, so let me just catch up a little bit. Yeah, it does look pretty cool. I'm really impressed with it. And Jay, I do completely agree with you that Monte Cook make very polished looking games. They're very beautiful. They're not cheap. They're heavy. There's a lot of pages. But if you've not read any of the Monte Cook games, and I know you have, the way they word things is really great. It's very accessible. As are the writings in Ecryme, which is where we are right now. So you can see the artwork. It is very much a steampunk aesthetic, and the idea is that there's an ocean of Ecryme, which is like this fluid. I can't tell from here. Can you see my mouse if I move stuff around? Maybe not. Okay. But basically, this kind of goo that you have that would be water is the Ecryme, and it melts like wood and stuff. So organic matter, I guess. Organic in the not necessarily in the chemical sense, but maybe also as well. So they've had to effectively rebuild everything in stone and steel, and yeah, so things like wooden boats and wooden houses and stuff, they kind of get decayed and eroded in a kind of acidy sort of way, and so as a result they created their cities upwards on those rocky outcrops that they did have. They had to build upwards, away from this Ecryme, this kind of horrible fluid, this viscous liquid that does nasty things. And as they say, large cities are built vertically to make the most of what little space exists. Sprang up from the horizon. After a few hundred years of development, driven by impulse, humanity built the traverses, and that's the bridges. You can see one of them on the screen here, and those bridges span the different cities. But of course, they've spent a long time separated from each other, each of these colonies of people, and the consequence of that is politics. That's the way it is, unfortunately. The cities have deployed their industry to unprecedented levels, and the Industrial Revolution is in full swing. I've always been quite interested in the Industrial Revolution. When I was at school, that's what we covered in history. The history class is the Industrial Revolution in the UK, which I always found more interesting than some of the other things that we looked at. So for me, that's really intriguing that they're focusing on that area. A lot of fantasy games seem to focus on kind of pre-industrial revolution, and a lot of contemporary stuff just presumes that we've got this amazing technology that's already been built. So it's nice to be in a setting where that is really happening now. I quite like that. Surviving cities have expanded into superpowers on their own, each having its own culture, strengths, weaknesses, and mindset. War is brewing, and between the many guilds and unions, and between the many sects who aim to either discover the secrets or ensure they're never revealed of the Ecryme. And you can see, if I just go back to this here, you can see what the layout's like. It's actually really pretty. They spent a lot of time and money on getting this game right, just in terms of the graphic design. But as I said, this is not a new game, so this whole setting has been being developed for a number of years. I want to say a couple of decades, actually, from memory. and as a result there's quite a lot of fiction that already exists, which makes it much easier for them to create the English language adaptation. But obviously that does pose a little bit of a challenge for those of us who are intimidated by lots of setting and lore and world building. Me, I love it. The challenge I have is not that exists. The challenge I have is having the time to actually upload it into my head. Let me know, what do you think? Do you like settings rich systems? Do you like games where there's hardly anything written down, you've got a basic flavour and the rest is up to you as a GM? How much do you like world building yourself versus creating a story in a world that already exists? Or even, as I tend to prefer, especially these days, running from adventures, from pre-written scenarios, just for whatever reason, either because you don't have the confidence or you don't have the time to really dedicate to creating an adventure or a campaign without some aid from the authors. Let me know, what do you think? What works for you? How is it played? We touched on this a little bit earlier. So you have your characters that have traits, up to the player to decide, word or phrase that focus on the particular aspects of the character that the player wants to embody. This reminds me a little of Cypher System in terms of how it's described. Skills, 15 skills in 3 distinct categories. And ideal and spleen, we touched on that a little bit. And there's a little bit of an explanation here about how the setting, or how the system rather, works. I'm not going to go into this, but you can get an idea of what the skills are like. Maybe not great if your vocabulary isn't ridiculous, but at the same time it probably will encourage you to learn new words. I'll be honest, I can derive what some of these are, and yeah, it's not like I don't know these words personally, but they are not common language, so that's a challenge. Loquacity, guile, quibbling. I like that, quibbling. What's your score in quibbling? I'll tell you, it's outside. Yeah, so it's interesting that they've decided to go for these antiquated words. Obviously it goes with the setting, but is this supposed to be Earth? I'm not sure. So yeah, power to them. Further interesting when you consider this is a translated game. I wonder what the original, the French words were for these. So there's an interesting little piece here, like a demonstration of how a game session might go. And it's quite nice reading it. As I said, this is really well written. The whole thing is, from what I've seen so far, it's eloquent and well written. Haha, yeah, exactly that. I know Guile, he's in Street Fighter. Yeah, this is how come we all know Guile. Those of us who grew up between the 70s and the 2000s, certainly. But I guess Street Fighter had a resurgence, didn't it? What do we have? So yeah, as I said, there's a demonstration about how the game might unfold. I'm not going to read that out. Check it out yourselves. It's great. I'm really impressed with it. There is a quick start. It is on drive-through. Definitely worth looking at that. It will give you a good idea about the quality of the layout and how it's all written, put together. I think it's quite good. Definitely will need a little bit of proofreading and review before final publication, but most books do, let's face it, and they don't need to be non-native authors for that to be an issue. In fact, some of the most interesting kind of native English language authors have put out some heinous print errors lately. It's not on them. Your proofreaders could be a challenge, and let's face it, when you're reading a 400-page book that you've written, you're going to miss stuff. And if you're proofreading a book that's 400 pages that someone else has written, you're going to miss stuff. It just happens. What do you get? What's in the actual campaign? Well, there's actually quite a lot. So they've gone the player's guide and the GM's guide, if you like, route. So you have a book for your players. How beautiful is that? It's really stunning. It reminds me a little bit of some of the work that you see from Chaosium, from Free League even, in terms of it's just pretty. It's not the same layout as, but it does remind me a bit of things like the Verse and limited edition books, and that's just the standard version. Then you have the Conductor's Manual, which is like the GM guide, basically. Again, absolutely stunning. Reminds me also of Bioshock Infinite, even normal Bioshock. This one, I guess that's why I said it. This does look like it's come straight out of Bioshock. The Collector's Edition, which gives you a title-free variant of so without the wording of the books, in a gorgeous slipcase. There you go. It's really pretty, really pretty. There are lots of extras, add-ons. We've got some add-ons here. Yeah, and then there's the stretch goals, and that's where it gets kind of interesting. This, I genuinely believe, is a beautiful product. It's an unknown product, but it's not like they haven't spent lots of time and also, I would say, money marketing this, because I first saw this probably through Facebook or something like that, but like maybe 3 or 4 months ago. So they have spent time and money trying to get this seen. None of it's come to me, but you know, gotta make that really clear. But how come they only have $25,000? That's the one thing that concerns me. This should be doing so much better, and I'm really curious as to why that is. There's a few updates. It's definitely worth having a look through to see where they're at. But yeah, it's a little bit interesting that they've 20 days to go. They have hit their goal, but that's my one concern is these things are not that cheap to put together, and if they haven't quite got enough bulk for the product, is that going to spell trouble? I really hope not. I really want this to like smash it out of the park. I think it's absolutely stunning. I think there's a severe lack of steampunk games in the market right now. They do exist. For example, there's a few. There's one right on the top of my tip of my brain that I've completely forgotten the name of, but it will come to me definitely. And when it does, I'll make a fool of myself trying to hide that I'm excited that I found it. I'm actually just looking through to see whether or not I can find the conversation I had about it not that long ago. That's how annoyed I am that I can't remember it. Yeah. What do you think? Ah, Space 1889. That's what I was thinking of. There you go. Just popped back into my head. So yeah, there are theme park games out there, but they're few and far between. None of them that contemporary. Grand Mechanismo. I don't know that one. Grand Mechanismo. Is that a game? I don't know. Let me know what you think of this game. I think it was really awesome. I think it's worth checking out all the stuff for it and giving them some love. Check out the groups on Facebook. They've got a really nice Facebook group, and you can get hold of kind of more information there. And I think it's definitely worth looking into. So that is Ecryme. And yeah, I'm kind of a little bit I don't know, disappointed that it's not doing better than it could, you know? Let me know what you think in the comments. Are there any reasons other than the back account why maybe you're not there yet? Is there something that's stopping you from going for it? Or did you just not know that it existed? Are you someone who, unlike me, doesn't spend your entire life on Kickstarter? Not really, but you get the idea. Okay, Monty Cook Games. What a powerhouse they are. They come across like a really big company. They had a presence at UK Games Expo. Shout out to Kate and everyone else who I met there. I had a great time at UK Games Expo, and actually 2 of the games that I demoed as a punter, not me personally demoing them out, were Old Gods of Appalachia and Stealing Stories from the Devil. Stealing Stories is there. I need to actually read it properly. And Old Gods is actually, it's on the bookcase. It's just off the screen here. Absolutely gorgeous. And Old Gods of Appalachia is a hugely successful horror podcast. Really gorgeous. Steve Shell and Cam Collins are the primary authors, I believe, of Old Gods, and it is set in Appalachia, and it's basically similar to Versen, but it's a podcast, and so it has a very different feel to it, also because it's set in Appalachia, which is like, it's an area of deep country in the US. The Magnus Archives, on the other hand, is also a podcast, and what's interesting about the Magnus Archives itself, so it's a horror investigation podcast. I've not listened to enough of the episodes. I've already apologized to Johnny for this. I've got no excuse because it's great. It's really good, and the episodes I've listened to have been phenomenally brilliant. What I love about it is that Johnny and Sasha and others actually have created themselves as characters within this world. So Johnny is basically narrating in first person as if he were an investigator, which obviously he is, looking into old archives of supernatural reports. And there's just so much grit there. It's just so much fun. So it's a horror investigation podcast, and there is now, on BackerKit, as we speak, the Magnus Archives role-playing game. And let's have a look, shall we? So, it is doing quite well. $1.3 million of a $100,000 goal. Monte Cook Games, as I said earlier on, they ain't cheap. So, right off the bat, I'll tell you, and I apologise, I meant to go through the pledge levels for Ekrime, and I realised I haven't. But right off the bat, you've got the reality that if you want to back this and get more than just the book, or even just the book, you're going to be paying more than the £25 that you're going to be spending for a D&D book. Let's put it that way. But you're going to get a lot of pages for your money. You're going to get a lot of typesetting and a lot of careful thought about the layout, the presentation, and accessibility. What does Magnus Archives feel like? Well, as you can see here, there's a nice little comment, a nice little quote. Then my gaze focused back on the thing in his hands, that dead, curling lump of clay, and I watched it move. It coiled around through its own face and flailed its long, distorted fins in desperate, pained movements. It made a noise that sounded like a scream heard through water and stretched out towards my mouth, which I'll admit was hanging open in horror. If I hadn't screamed and fallen backwards, I'm sure the thing would have dived down my throat. That's episode 126, Sculptor's Tool. And that's just an idea of the narrative. Beautifully written. Helps that Johnny is really well spoken as well and can really deliver that sincerity and conviction very, very well. Among others, he's not the only person in the project. It's an award-winning horror fiction anthology podcast examining what lurks in the archives of the Magnus Institute, an organisation dedicated to researching the esoteric and the weird. Follows the actions of head archivist Jonathan Sims as he attempts to bring a seemingly neglected collection of supernatural statements up to date, converting them to audio and supplementing them with follow-up work from his small but dedicated team. Individually, these statements are unsettling. Together, they begin to form a picture that is truly horrifying because, as Jonathan and his team look into the depths of the archives, something starts to look back. it feels a lot like the Lovecraft investigations. And if you liked those, if you listened to that podcast, then that's a good benchmark, if you like. If you didn't, then check out the Magnus Archives, because it's contemporary and you need to get a feel for it if you want to back this and get all the Kickstarter goodies or crowdfunding goodies. Then go back and check out the Lovecraft investigations on your favourite podcasting thing. Make sure you listen to them in order. Same with Magnus. Make sure that you start at the beginning and you work your way through. What do we get? So, Monty Cook Games, they've got really premium packages. That sounds weird. So the Entity backer level, you get an autographed limited deluxe edition with a reversible dust jacket. Standard edition, so you've got your one for the shelf and your one for the table. A campaign journal, so as the GM you get to actually take notes. I'm terrible at taking notes as a GM. How about you? Are you the sort of person who takes a lot of notes, or do you rely on your memory and then realise that now that you're in your 40s, that doesn't work so well? Definitely in the latter camp myself. Player's guides, book plates. I'm not far enough through the Magnus Archives to actually understand the significance of these, which is just awful, I know. I guess Mr. Spider in print. Again, I confess I don't know what that relates to. Also, at this level, you get exclusive dice, an early access playtest, file folders, an XP deck. So, things I love about Cypher System. And this is a Cypher System, by the way, so it's hugely narrative. There is a dice mechanic in there, and the dice mechanic is basically along the lines of you roll a number of, well, you roll a d20 rather, and the challenge is based on how difficult it is. Sorry, that's a ridiculously crap explanation. Like, if something is super easy, then it may be a 0 difficulty, in which case you don't need to roll, or a multiple of 3, I think. My brain is not working. Pretty sure. Help me out, guys. Multiple of 3. So, like, something's level 1, you have to roll above a 3. Level 2, 2 times 3, etc. Could be 4, but I think that's Savage Worlds, and I'm just having a brain fart. You can then modify the difficulty, so that base number that's the multiplier. Thank you, Jay. Let me just turn those comments back on so you can see. Thank you, Jay. You can modify that base level. So let's say that someone says, okay, it's a difficulty 4, challenge level 4, so 4 times 3, you need to roll a 12 or above. But you can go, well, actually, I know you said it's a difficulty 4 for me to climb over that wall, but I'm experienced. You know, I've climbed a few walls over the last 6 or 7 adventures. I think I'm getting quite good at it, and I've got my climbing boots on. And Steve's going to give me a boost. So you might be able to argue that down from a 4. You could ease that task by a couple of steps. So it might become a level 2 task instead of a level 4 task. With effort, I'm going to try extra hard. I'm going to apply some effort. I'm going to take 3 points from my physical dice pool. That might is actually what it is. That could be eased even further. So you could take some points out of a rechargeable pool of points to ease it a further step. If you can get that down from a difficulty 4, challenge 4, so it's 12 or above, to a 0, then again you don't have to roll. There are various ways to do it. It's great. One thing that I really like is that if you fumble your roll, then the GM gets to put in an intrusion. So basically the GM gets to go, haha, well, actually, that wall's covered in oil. You're going to have to roll anyway. But also the GM can do that sort of thing at any time that they want. And you accrue XP in the game by, among other things, accepting those intrusions. So if the GM might say, actually, I know that Steve's supposed to give you a hand, but he can't. He's tying his shoes. I don't know, we're an example here. He's tying his shoes and can't possibly get over there. He's twisted his ankle. It's not bad. He's not going to take any damage, but actually he can't get to you in time. If you accept that, then you get given 2 XP, and this comes back to why I'm explaining about the XP deck here. Hang on, we just hide that again. So the XP on the screen here is that you accrue XP. You'll get 2 XP for accepting an intrusion. 1 for you, 1 for a mate. So it might be that actually the person playing Steve, he said something really funny earlier on and you thought it was worth rewarding. Give him 1 of the XP. You have to keep 1 and share 1. If you don't want to accept that intrusion, you can reject it, but it will cost you 1 XP to do it. And those XP can be used, they can be saved up to use for character advancement. You can also spend them on dice rerolls and things like that. I'm really falling in love with the Cypher system. I still haven't played it enough, but you get the drift. It's pretty cool. And I'm a big fan of anything that rewards players for fun play and encourages players to help others to succeed. Not enough of that at the table. You know, when I'm playing, I try really hard to give everyone else a spotlight and avoid it myself as much as possible. It probably doesn't show up, actually, when we're doing actual plays, but hopefully it does. So what's left in the stretch goals? Well, more investigations, because they've just blasted through loads of stuff. So there is some information about the actual game. If you haven't listened to the Magnus Archives and you want to, then do not read below the spoiler alert. I'm just going to skim straight through it. And the reason for that is that the Magnus Archives role-playing game is based on the show and will call back to things that happen in the show. So for that very reason, you need to make a decision pretty early on. Well, you've got a year, whether or not you want to just play the game and ignore the content that's already there, or listen to the content and use that to help you bring this world to life when you run it. Time permitting, I would definitely go for the latter. But you get a bunch of exclusive items. We've kind of gone through these already, and it's just pretty gorgeous. Pledge levels. This is what I should have done earlier. Sorry. 30 quid gets you the PDF, and then it jumps. It jumps quite a lot. Monty Cook Games do this. They charge quite a lot for PDFs. They charge quite a lot for physical material. I wouldn't go so far as to say that they overcharge. I think you get a really good level of quality for what you pay. There are some good examples of this with things like their Invisible Sun game. Huge, great big box, just about fits in a Kallax cube. Really expensive, a couple of £100, maybe 300. But the amount of physical stuff you get in that cube is just phenomenal. And even when you're just looking at books, it's similar. Old Gods of Appalachia is out. Go and have a look at it, and you'll get an idea of what I mean. So $75 gets you the book in print and PDF. So that's about £60. That's about the same amount as you'll spend in retail. But in retail, you don't get the PDF by default. If you want to get the PDF and the book, it's going to be more expensive, I should think. Archivist gets you the limited edition version. The investigative team gets you a bunch of other stuff. I can't remember what these are now. We'll have a look at the actual pledge levels tab, actually. That will help, won't it? So you get 5 loads of the character portfolios, 5 loads of the player's guide, and actually the player's guide is a saddle stitched, so a A4 or US letter sized booklet that's got a couple of staples down one side, so it's soft cover, presuming it's the same as the Old Gods one, like a magazine pretty much, but it has all the core rules that your players will need at the table. So when you start a campaign, you can throw this at them and go and read this. I'll make beers or coffees. I'll make beers. Who makes beers? Yoel makes beers. Hey Yoel, how you doing? Hope you are well when he sees this finally. Yeah, read this. It'll take you 20 minutes. Maybe take it home with you, but look after it or I'll kick your butt. And then they'll be good to go. And GM campaign journal. Avatar is a little bit more involved. So you get the limited edition, the standard edition imprint, 5 players guides, 5 character portfolios, GM's campaign journal in print, limited edition dice, book plates, and Magnus Archives XP deck, plus a bunch of digital stuff. So it's worth pointing out that the digital stuff you get is pro rata to what you actually receive in your packaging. So effectively you get the limited edition stuff in that Avatar level. That would traditionally be what they call the fill level, although the entity level, which is quite a lot more, $70 more, so it's about £50 more. For that, you get things autographed, which is kind of nice. Although Johnny, at the very least, and Sasha tend to be at UK Games Expo, and they're lovely people, so I'm sure they'd sign it for you if you asked them really nicely, maybe took them a present or something. A guest for Mr. Spider, I'll find out, I'll report back. And other stuff. So that, and early access, which is really important. So that is probably the fill level. And yeah, not cheap. And then you've got add-ons as well. So you can get some of these things as additional tings. Okay, so here you go. Full-fledged physical copy of the book featured in the Magnus Archives, and perhaps in your own chilling adventures, if you dare read it. Oh, I'm looking forward to finding out what that's all about. I need to get back and start listening again. Right, let me just come back to the comments. I can see that I've missed a few. Boom. Just the one. Dreams of Machines has a mechanic where if a player is down and you help them get back up, you get an XP. Is that a typical 2D20 thing? I genuinely don't know. So Dreams of Machines is the new Modiphius book game. And at Orbtoberfest, which is happening for us in Nottingham next month, 5 weeks or so away, I believe Jay is going to be running Dreams of Machines. So super excited about that. It's not a typical 2D20 thing. Oh, interesting. I've still yet to play, other than Fallout RPG, I've not played any 2D20 games. I have a couple on the shelf. I should really read them. Dune and John Carter. So, yeah. Again, no excuse. Our friend Dave Sumark over at The Effect has this thing about how many role-playing game sessions you have left before you die, and then comparing it to, and that's based on how many days a year you actually spend role-playing versus how old you are. And average life expectancy is really goddamn depressing. But with that in mind, I should really start going through some of these things, shouldn't I? But yeah, I mean, that's Magnus Archives. I'm super excited. It is gorgeous. The people behind it are amazing. Oh yeah, let's have a look here. So, Monty Cook, obviously he's got his hand in it. This is a licensed production, but it's got the Cypher system through and through. Monty Cook is a legend. We all know that I'm not a huge fan of D&D, but that's not the point. He's done some amazing things, and outside of D&D, he's continued to foster this company that has done incredible things. Johnny is here, and he's just a wonderful, wonderful man, a legend. In fact, there's an interview with Johnny and Sasha on our YouTube from a couple of years ago, when it's just slightly before they won an award for Odd Jobs, which I always want to call side jobs. But Odd Jobs is a collection of little adventures that you can run in any system, and they're bloody brilliant. Haven't read any of them, but reading the book is incredible. Check it out. Also, they wrote Zero Void, which is perhaps my favourite almost zero prep one-shot role-playing game. I've run it once. We didn't record it. Really fun if you like sci-fi. Alexander, director, writer, actor, and producer, CEO of Rusty Quill. And then you have others, wonderful people. Bruce, Shanna, Sean, Dominique, Bear, Javier, Terry, Kate, Jennifer, Tammy, and Charles. Of those people, I've met Kate. She is marketing manager in UK for Monty Cook, and she's phenomenal. So if you get the opportunity to see Monty Cook at any event, make sure to say hello to her and everyone else, because Monty Cook are awesome. But with that in mind, yeah, what do you think? What are your thoughts of that game, of the Magnus Archives? What are your thoughts of Ekrime? And I did promise I was going to double check those pledge levels, so I'm not going to open the page again, but just to let you know, it's $135 to get the collector's edition with a slipcase, $90 to get the standard edition, $40 for PDFs. If I was going to get it, I would be looking at that collector's edition because I'd really want to help them to succeed. But that's something for you to look at, and let us know in the comments. Come to talk to us on Discord as well. So the Discord link is down below if you're in YouTube, and we'd love to talk to you more about these amazing projects and what your thoughts are on them. Finally, I'd love to know, what do you think of our new layout, this new system that we've got, the new graphics and everything. It's taken us a while to get there, and I think it's paying off. I think the effort is worth it, but let me know how you feel about our new video stuff. Alrighty, it has been a blast. It was really great to see those of you who've been online. Great to see you, Neil and Jay. I appreciate that this is on at an unusual time for us. Fridays are becoming a challenge. Who'd have thunk it? So we might see Kickstart Your Weekend happening more frequently on a Thursday moving forward, but it all depends on the challenges of real life. In the meantime, yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this. Hope you've been also enjoying our Wasteland Wednesdays series, which is happening on Wednesdays, which is our current post-apocalypse themed stuff. We've had a lot of fun with that, and we're currently going through Vermin 2047 from Studio Agate. Absolutely beautiful, really lots of fun. Shout out again to Paladin Neil for running that. Alright, I think it's a wrap. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have, as I said before, please consider hitting like and subscribe and all of that other stuff, and let us know what you think of those games. We'll see you very soon for some more. In fact, we'll see you on Wednesday for some more post-apocalypse fun. My name's Phil. Thank you for joining the Dark Orb, and until next time, I hope your dice rolls are way better than mine. Take care, everyone.